This one video took me to over 200,000 followers on Instagram in like 2 weeks, actually. But as much as possible, I hope that I can not be too influenced by social media. I just want to keep doing what I set out to do this year, which was work on writing and recording every single day.
Welcome to A Musical Mind. I'm your host, Richard Raymond II. I'm a recording engineer, music producer, and multi-instrumentalist located in Colorado Springs, Colorado. In this podcast, we'll talk to a variety of musicians about the music-making process, as well as the life and mindset that have helped them find success as a musical mind. Thank you for being here. Here we go. Hey people, another episode today. Today's musical mind is Jake Chapman, the vibraphonist and master of all thing mallets from Los Angeles, California. So, better known as Chappy Milkshake on Instagram, Jake recently put out an original video that was in the form of a reel called An Angel Will Be With You Shortly, where he kind of makes this original song using mallet instruments exclusively. And it popped up on my feed. I dug it. I reached out, and Jake came on to kind of talk about what happened prior to that video and how he's been responding to the success of it and what doors it's kind of opened up for him moving forward. And above all, Jake's focused on trying not to let the numbers get to his head and just to keep focused on what matters most, and that's making and recording original music. Here we go. Jake Chapman. How's it going, everyone? Welcome to another episode of A Musical Mind. I'm your host, Richard Raymond II, and I'm here with Jake Chapman, the LA-based vibraphonist and pianist. Jake, how you doing tonight?
Hey, Rick, I'm doing well. Very nice to meet you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I stumbled upon I don't think I stumbled upon your content. I think it found me. It knew I would like what you were doing over there. And this was just a couple weeks ago. And I don't remember what reel it was or whatever, but I thought it was great. Figured I'd just hit you up, see if you wanted to come on, and you were kind enough to do so. So that's kind of the backstory to today's episode for everyone who's wondering. So how about you tell us about your start with vibraphone? I presume you maybe started with piano. Fill us in.
Sure, man. You are correct that my first instrument was piano. I started taking piano lessons when I was 6, although I would have sat down at the piano before then on my own. I actually come from a musical family, so my dad's a pianist, my mom's a singer. And I started playing percussion in middle school. So 6th grade, wind ensemble, and also percussion ensemble. That led me to play vibraphone in jazz band in 7th grade. And I took a liking to it, and I kept going up until the present day. So I still play piano, as you mentioned, and those are my two main instruments.
Cool.
And I've been just doing a ton of gigging the last few years, recording sessions. But it's really the last couple months that I've turned to a larger focus on writing and recording original music using my mallet instruments, especially.
Yeah, it's really cool to see and hear. Like there's I've had the song stuck in my head all day because I was played it this morning. What is it? An angel will be upon you shortly, right? Did I get
Close,
that right?
will be with you shortly. I like
Okay.
upon you. That's actually really nice, man.
Yeah, just trying to make it more poetic. But that tune, which you've put out a reel with it recently, and you can see, well, I never would have guessed like where you're. I've never played vibraphone. I've played glockenspiel. I have one, but like you're like massaging these things, and you get almost like it sounds like a pad, and there's no
Yeah.
way I would have guessed that was not like a synth or something. So
Right. Yeah, no, I mean that was the first I guess, first entry in this new experiment of mine, which
Mm-hmm.
not only writing original music, but the idea to record very soft sounds.
Mm.
That was a great example of that. And this idea to record extremely soft sounds on the vibraphone, especially, it goes back at least months, maybe years. I'm not sure exactly when I had the idea, but it's something that I never really put it into practice until a couple months ago when I made that video. Um, and yeah, I personally am a huge fan of the soft dynamics on vibraphones and also other mallet instruments. I think they sound the most beautiful at those dynamic ranges. Um, but yeah, I really was in a space at the beginning of the year to be very open and very creative, and that led me to making that particular piece of music. It came out of me very organically.
Mm-hmm.
I just put the elements together one night, and the next day I re-recorded it and made the video. Had no idea how popular it would be on Instagram. I was just documenting it, because I wanted to
Right.
share what I made. So I had no idea, and it's the success of that, and the attention that it's gotten has been at times overwhelming, but definitely affirming, and has made me swiftly um, focus a lot of energy towards what it means for me to be an artist, and a composer and a songwriter, etc. After having been very much a sideman the
Mm.
past few years, especially coming out of COVID, just a ton of gigs, mostly not under my name,
Okay.
which is totally great and everything. But I think uh, obviously there's something within me that I, now I can definitely acknowledge more and feel like um, working towards. I would say, yeah.
That's awesome. So this is I've only been following you for a little while here. So this is kind of like a new thing that's happening as we're
Yeah,
talking. All
yeah.
right. I wouldn't have guessed that.
I know. Isn't that so funny?
Yeah.
You never know. So I'll give you a little, I guess, a few metrics. The
Sure.
most telling would be um, before this video. You know, I would have had 15.5 ish thousand followers on
Hmm.
Instagram. This one video took me to over 200,000 followers on Instagram
Wow.
in like 2 weeks, actually.
That's insane.
Um, and it is insane, yeah. So I've used Instagram very regularly for the past almost 6 years,
Hmm.
and I've made, you know, 1,300 posts. And just the thought that, whatever percentage, 90+% of my followers now hadn't known about me until very recently. It's kind of
Yeah.
interesting.
It's so
Um,
weird. It's so weird.
it is weird. It is very
Yeah.
weird. So it's like I'm kind of reintroducing myself to these new followers, but as much as possible, I hope that I can not be too influenced by
Hmm.
you know social media. I just want to
Hmm.
keep doing what I set out to do this year, which was, as I wrote in that very first post, I just want to work on writing and recording every single day.
Uh-huh.
And that was before the success of that first video. So I want to stay true to that. Obviously, it's a little more complicated now because I have other things to attend to, like releasing music. I wasn't necessarily intending on releasing this stuff so soon,
Right.
but obviously I had to get out that single.
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah.
and other considerations like performing, right, under
Hmm.
my own name. I've been trying to figure out what that looks like,
Hmm.
uh, and also other things like merch and whatever. But I'm trying to take that stuff in stride,
Yeah.
not really force myself to do everything all at once. I really want to just stay in the creative mode and
Hmm.
form a habit out of it. That was my intention. I just wanted to make writing and recording um just something I did so naturally that I didn't have to like push myself that hard to do it. That it just happens
Hmm.
um very naturally. Yeah.
If you're anything like me, you've always got that one thing in the back of your mind that you know is that next piece of gear that you are gonna buy. Just one day it's gonna come and you're gonna say, fuck it, today is the day. And I urge you, next time that day comes, check out Mountain Music Exchange. I'm gonna leave a link to their website in the show notes. Mountain Music is Kentucky's premier guitar store selling new, used, and vintage gear shipped worldwide. I've gotten a handful of things from Mountain Music throughout the years, and they've been generous enough to offer up a 15% off code. And that code is Musical Mind 15. That's Musical Mind 15. So before you buy that next thing, zip on over to that link in the show notes, check out Mountain Music Exchange, and see if they got it. Because if they do, you're saving 15%. That is super cool, and I think that just speaks to the power of, when you're doing something with pure intentions and you're aligned with your values, that's when things kind of organically happen around you. Um, you can we try to force it. Many of us do, myself at times, and it usually doesn't work out that way. So I commend you and keep going. It's really cool to watch, and I think like it's unique in that you play an instrument that most people maybe they're familiar with, but like myself, I've never played one. Though I like play a little bit of keys and drums, so I'm like, damn, like that would be probably a lot of fun, and like I think I could do something the first time that I tried it out, but where there's not one around me, so it's cool to see someone who's super well versed in it. And then on top of that, you're innovating with it so much. Like we talked about using these softer sounds. Or another thing I want to talk about is there's one I saw you using like a Digitech Whammy, which is a pitch shifting pedal. And I wasn't even fully processing how it was being used, though like I know how that thing works and stuff. And that's like my favorite when I'm like
Mhm.
hearing or watching something and I'm like, I don't get it. And that's like when I'm most interested. So do you want to talk a little bit about using like effects pedals and the vibraphone?
Yeah, sure, man.
Yeah.
So I have an electric vibraphone, which I use pedals with.
Uh-huh.
The way that works is that each bar has a pickup, and then those pickups all sum out to one output, and then I put them through a pedal chain, and then just like a guitar player would.
Right.
I also have an electric marimba, which works similarly.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, working with pedals has been something I've done on and off for the past, I would say, about 7 years.
So you've had
Um,
this for a while, the electric
yeah,
one.
well, the vibraphone, especially the electric marimba, I've had for about a year and a half. But I've done actually a good amount of recording with it in Portland,
Okay.
and should have some music on the way, releases um, this year, hopefully. Yeah, I would say pretty certainly this year.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I like having that as an option. Definitely over the last couple years, it hasn't been the main thing I've been doing because my gigs mostly call for acoustic instruments.
Hmm.
But I'm definitely excited about the possibilities that they afford. And, the more that I work in my studio, the more that I will keep integrating them into what I do.
Hmm.
The specific video that you saw recently, I did use a pitch shifting pedal, and there was a whammy in the video, but I wasn't using it actually.
Okay.
It was in the chain, but I didn't use it. I used the pitchfork, the electro
Okay.
harmonic.
Yeah.
Yep. Mhm. And yeah, I have a few types of effects that I really like to use on vibes. One is definitely pitch shifting because vibraphone is an instrument that you can't bend the pitch on. With
Mhm.
one exception, you can use a hard mallet to bend pitches down, but it takes you having to hold a hard mallet in your hand, and it doesn't work extremely well,
Mhm.
especially in a loud setting. It's a cool effect, but having a pitch pedal definitely opens up new doors for that type of expression. I also really enjoy using distortion and delay and reverb, of course.
Yeah. Gotta have a little
Yeah,
reverb.
the world of effects is endless. And I think at the moment I'm still not like more excited about the affected vibraphone than I am just about writing for this percussion ensemble of that I have in my studio.
Mhm.
Uh, really trying to work very minimally, I think. Um, when I was making that first video that we were talking about earlier, um, in the demo, after I'd recorded the vibraphone part and the boom whacker part, I can't remember if that came
Boop,
first.
boop, boop,
I
boop.
w- yeah, yeah. I went to so I recorded vibes first, and then I probably did boom whackers, and then I was like, you know what? Let me put a beat on it. Um, I might have just had vibraphone at this point. I can't remember. So I went into Logic, pulled up an electronic drum kit, and started messing around with a kick and a snare, and it sounded good. But kind of in that moment, I naturally decided, you know what? I mean, let me try to get these sounds without samples.
Mm.
Um, and so the idea of using that vocal isolation shield thing as a kick drum that came to me right in that very moment. I had already set it up because when I recorded the vibraphone part, I used it to create an isolation chamber because I was playing super soft. So I thought maybe it would be nice
Mm.
to achieve some more resonance. But it was there, and I just started banging on it, and was very surprised, pleasantly surprised at how good of a kick drum sound it made. And then for my snare sound, I used the panel on the vibraphone that controls the motor speed.
Mm.
Um, and so since that video, I haven't used any samples whatsoever. I'm really just using my mallet percussion instruments and then various objects for percussion. Most of the percussion
Nice.
I've done hasn't even been real percussion instruments. I find objects to use.
Right.
The
Yeah.
one I posted one last night. I used a Vornado fan, and I was hitting my bag of boom whackers as the kick drum. So yeah, that's been exciting. I think I'm mostly inspired right now to make music in a way that hasn't been made much.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I feel like the particular formula that I'm using with my instruments that I'm using and not using samples and trying to achieve certain styles of music, there's not like a huge precedent for it, or at least that's how I feel. And that makes me think it's worth exploring.
Totally. There's no better
Mhm.
feeling than believing, whether it's true or not, that you're doing something for the first time. That's like,
Right, right, right.
you know,
Exactly. Whether
y-
it's true or not.
right.
Whatever
Yeah,
whatever like keeps you inspired, I think is the key.
exactly. That's like when you're truly just channeling the inspiration. Um,
Exactly. And that's why, like I was saying before, I don't it's hard to avoid, getting caught up with social media and
mhm,
numbers because and I've experience with the numbers game on YouTube.
mhm,
Over the past few years, I grew my YouTube channel to over 1 million subscribers. Um, and I'm no stranger to millions and millions of views on videos. But I think this one's different because it was one a video that I did not expect to get views. I was not making to get views, and it was a piece
mhm,
of original music, not a piece of viral content or what I
mhm.
was expecting to be viral content, right?
What is on your YouTube channel? I'm not familiar with it. Like
Sure.
what type of content?
Yeah, it's still content with my mallet instruments. Um, but it's primarily YouTube Shorts and entertaining content. So, for
Mm.
example, uh, I'll take a popular song, whether it's a trending song or whether it's just a familiar song from the past. Right, and it was the Barbie theme song, and I did that right when the movie came out. And let's say 8 instruments, and I played the Barbie theme, just jumping from steel pan to
Mm.
whatever, to vibraphone to marimba, etc. And so I've done that a number of times, and those are the types of videos that have gotten a ton of views on YouTube. But none of them were original music. None of them felt like it was my musician side first, and that's why I felt like YouTube in general has been a side hustle for me.
Mm.
It's more separate than integrated into my music life, so my performing and my writing and my recording, etc. But now, of course, the new things that I'm doing on Instagram and I guess I'm posting it everywhere, but it seems to be doing the best on Instagram, which
Mhm.
is true. That is um, a recent phenomenon where I'm marrying my music with content,
Mhm.
and that feels that feels good. Yeah.
Yeah, have you kinda always composed your own music?
So I've gone through certain phases, and I would say that I'm pretty much always coming up with like little ideas and recording voice notes or piano notes or whatever. Um, but I would say it's been quite a while since I put composing as a top priority. Um, the last time I felt really, really engaged with composition um, for an extended period of time was probably uh, 2016 to 2018 when I was writing a lot of musical theater. Actually,
Mm.
I was living in New York, and yeah, I just wrote a ton of songs, mostly composing, but also some lyrics as well. And yeah, during that time, I actually probably would have said I was a composer even before a musician, like performer, which is
Mm.
very interesting. And that's definitely the last time that I felt like writing came before playing. But these days, the last couple months, it's definitely felt like I'm kind of putting writing and recording before performing out. I'm still taking gigs, I'm just not playing as many. Last year I played 200 gigs, um, mostly in LA, but some out of town, and I would say about half on vibes and half on piano. But yeah, I'm still performing. I still like performing, but I'm just not trying to like fill up my schedule with as many gigs as possible
Mhm.
because I really want to keep it open for creative time in the studio.
That's awesome. I'm kind of
Thanks.
in the opposite boat in this moment right now. I'm trying to play out more. I spent years, like, primarily just, like, making records. Um, it's funny how, they go. They go up and down, you just gotta ride the wave that's hot. So that's great.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I just try to follow what I feel at any given
Mhm.
moment. And my instinct had been, I think, coming into this year, as I mentioned, just to spend more time in the studio to make some very concerted effort to doing that. Not just be like oh yeah, that'll be kind of a thing I'll do whenever I feel like it. Um, I really wanted to make it a habit, and I think I hit the ground running just doing that. And I want to just continue that for as long as possible. But I already feel the sense of like needing to perform more. And obviously, I've been thinking a lot about how I'm going to be performing this new music that
Mhm.
I've been working. And I've had a few different ideas. I tried just the very first attempt at a percussion ensemble just about a couple weeks ago.
I think I may have seen it. Was this a Tiny Desk thing?
Yeah, I decided
Yeah.
last minute to put together a
Okay.
Tiny Desk contest entry, and so I just
Mhm.
assembled some of my percussion friends here in LA, and
Mhm.
we just met one morning, ran through the track and then did a few takes. So yeah, I think I definitely see potential there. Definitely some things I need to improve, but the idea of a percussion ensemble, that's the one I think that's exciting me the most at the moment,
Mhm.
because first and foremost, the music that I'm writing is like arranged for percussion ensemble already.
Right.
Um, and two, the percussion ensemble is not something you would expect to see like outside of like a concert hall or like some sort of cultural performance
Yeah.
situation. All great things, but the music that I've been writing has very much been not tied to the percussion ensemble, right? I'm
Right.
working in genres that you would not see a percussion ensemble in general, right?
Mhm.
Whether it's lo-fi or ambient or hip hop and R&B, jazz, all that stuff, I feel like has been combining and mixing together to form the things I've been working on. Um, I'm excited to see the potential in a live percussion ensemble. Um, I just need to figure out how it actually works, because it's one thing recording piece by piece in a studio where you can have a lot of control over the parts and the mixing, and another
Right.
thing to live. I know it's possible. It's just I know it's gonna take some work to get there.
Pausing the show here to talk about my first sample pack with 5-pin media titled Psychedelic Soul and Downtempo, available on loopmasters.com. This thing is massive. It is 5.8 gigabytes, and it took me forever working on this thing to give you all the sweet stuff that's packed in here. And as it currently stands, it has 16 5-star ratings on loopmasters.com, which is pretty good. Anyway, there's a lot packed in here, recorded with primarily analog instruments, including my Korg SV1, a Roland Strings, a Wurlitzer organ, my Micro Brute, my Glockenspiel, my Fender Rascal bass, a Washburn semi-hollow bass, Fender Strat, and an array of analog effects and pedals. There are 100 acoustic drum loops on here that I played and recorded myself at Wholesome Studio C7 in Chicago's North Side back when I still lived there. And there are 502 drum loops in total, meaning the rest of those are programmed. There's so many drums in here. We also have one shots. We've got musical loops on all those instruments that I named. To be specific, there's 766 loops, 179 one-shots, 981 multi-samples, 18 sampler patches, 240 MIDI files, and a Live 10 project featuring 25 sampler bass instrument racks. Like I said, this thing is huge. There's so much to use in here if you're a producer, beat maker, or you just need stuff to play along with. I put a lot of work into this thing. I promise there's plenty here for you to use. Sounds great. It's vibey. It's all down tempo, cool shit. Give it a listen. Give it a buy. Head on over to Loopmasters. I got the link in the show notes. Go there, go get it, and start making some cool shit.
That's one thing I was wondering about when you were talking about the softer sounds. I'm imagining that like usually you have vibraphone. I know of it in like high school band or something. So if you're doing your massaging technique, maybe you have a different name for it. I'm calling it the massage.
Oh, I don't
Would
have
that
a
even be
word for it.
audible? Like
Right. So
it wouldn't cut, right?
exactly.
Hmm.
It depends on where you're performing, and so basically the only way that's going to be heard is if it's not competing with other sound,
Hmm.
and you're either playing in a small room or you have like a lot of gain in a
Hmm.
big situation. But if you're playing with a big band, like kind of forget about it unless like it's super
Right.
isolated,
Hmm.
right? Which is why for that recent video, that live version that I did, I ended up having 2 players on that part. I had 1 player
Oh,
just striking the notes as normal, and then 1 just doing the gliding. I don't know if you should call it gliding or,
yeah,
uh,
massage or glide, whatever.
I like massaging, that's really nice. Uh, but yeah, it's a interesting question, and it kind of is like, well, does the live version not have that, or do you have to, like, figure out a different way to do that? How
Synth or
important
something, yeah.
is that
But
sound can it be, can we swap that sound to another percussion instrument that kind
yeah.
of achieves the same
Mhm.
ish thing, right? They're all good questions, and I'm trying to think about that, but not worry too much at the moment. Because like I said, my priority right now is really just keep creating, keep recording, ideally work up to more releases, whether more singles or an EP or an album or
Mhm.
more, right? I'm just trying to keep it up. I want to, because I don't feel like I'm there yet
Right.
to the place where I am just writing and recording automatically. I still feel like I need to force myself a little bit,
Mm.
um, especially when I have other distractions, like or just other things to attend to, like gigs, um, messaging, um, and just anything else really, in
Sure.
my life. Definitely that first week of work on this stuff was kind of a magical week in that I had a completely free week. It was the beginning of the year, which to me oftentimes feels like very open and kind of more at rest and more space to work with. That's how it feels to me, at least. And I also just, um, yeah, I came into the year with an intention, and I was ready to execute it. So yeah, I'm just trying to keep that spark going, and as much as possible to not, as I was mentioning, to not be tied to the response that I get
Mhm.
from the videos that I post,
Right.
Yeah, that
Right.
because it's great to see people responding, but it can be very damaging to like judge, your work on like whether it got views or,
Yeah. It's
you know.
challenging. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I doubt you're that much more, proficient of a musician than you were 6 months ago before you had all this attention. Like, does that you know what I mean? Like, there's so many other factors that influence kinda who cuts through and who doesn't. I do kinda wanna talk about some of that.
Mhm.
Um, I'm assuming you do music full time?
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, and so you kinda have your YouTube channel. One thing I talk about on the show is kind of trying to encourage people who want to make a living, in the world of music, and so, if you could maybe kind of talk a bit about how you've been able to do that. I'm assuming it's like through gigging, but you also have this online presence, which is much bigger now than it was, but still 15K is, more than most.
Mhm.
And then your YouTube thing, you've had a plan. You've talked a lot about intentions and execution. So clearly you're disciplined. Just tell us a little bit about what that journey's been like. And
Mhm.
the last thing I want to know is it seems like you have freedom of time. Are you kind of drawing in passive income from some of these things? So you could be like, fuck it, I'm just gonna make videos because I'm good. I know rent's covered, or
Mhm.
you get where I'm going with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll speak first to the like discipline and intention thing.
Hmm.
So I feel like the past couple years, um, while I have been busy and working as a musician full time, I think I kind of got used to this lifestyle, which was just get called for a ton of gigs and some recording sessions. And that's how I filled up my time and I earned enough money. Um, but I think there was sort of a lack of intentionality in that I I was just side manning super hard, right? Things, and I enjoy playing gigs. I like playing different types of music with different people at different venues, and I like the kind of irregularity of it, and that excites me. Not knowing how my month's going to shape out exactly. Um, but I did want to take some more control, I think, and be more creative. And I definitely recognize that people were asking me somewhat often, like, do you write? Do you compose? Stuff like that. And I was always saying, like, kind of sometimes, or used to more, not really right now. And that would kind of bug me a little bit. And I think just recently I've just tried to take action and remedy that. Um, so yeah, working as a full-time musician, that's definitely a goal and a significant milestone, and I'm definitely proud that I achieved that. But coming out of the pandemic, um, I live in LA. I'm from LA, but I actually lived in New York until shortly before the pandemic.
Mhm.
So I really wasn't established at all in the LA scene um, during the pandemic, and as the pandemic was, kind of you know letting go of its grasp on everything. Um, so in 2021, I definitely had a few gigs come my way. I was going to a lot of jam sessions, etc. 2022 is when the gigs really started picking up. I think I played 150 gigs in 2021, sorry, 2022, and 200 gigs, like I said, last year, 2023. And gigs are definitely my main source of income. Um, you know, there are a lot of gigs that don't play extremely well, but when you play 200 gigs a year, though, they definitely add up.
Mhm.
Um, and then recording sessions, I would do a good amount of recording at various studios, sometimes in my own studio, and that adds a good side income as well. You mentioned passive income. Yeah, I consider my YouTube in general passive income. It varies quite a bit because the views aren't super predictable.
Mhm.
But over the last few years that I've been monetizing, I've made anywhere from like a few $100 to uh, 2 or 3 thousand bucks a month. In general, it typically hovers between 500 and 1,200 or something like that. So yeah, a good side income. But yeah, those are my three main sources, and it's been enough to um, to live off and to save up a bit and to get to the point where I don't have to take a gig, because I'm not desperate for the money, which
Mhm.
is a huge privilege. And I'm, very fortunate to have gotten to that point. And that is definitely a factor in leading up to this moment where I do have the time to spend in the studio and really feel creative and not too pressured,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's very important, having the time and having the financial freedom, take that for granted. Um, and I do feel somewhat like I'm in entrepreneurial mode
Mhm.
because as a gigging musician, as a freelancer, you're very much, yeah, you're just like kind of cobbling together this schedule built of many different things, getting hired by a ton of people. But when you are trying to build something, and in general, I'm just focused on the music I'm making, but obviously I'm thinking about long term a little bit, and you know what steps do I have to take to get to the next level in this um artist, so-called artist career.
Sure.
um and I think that's kind of entrepreneurial in
Mhm.
in a sense,
Totally.
because I'm very much just like putting in the legwork right now. I'm not making money off what I'm doing right now, but hopefully um it'll pay off at some point. But money is really not like why I'm doing music. It'd be wonderful to make money from what I do. But I really am only motivated, I think, by the need to um discover, what and create and perform and um, deliver something of value to an audience. And hopefully, like I said, hopefully that leads to money. Obviously, that will allow it to keep going.
Right.
But even I would hope that as long as I want to be making music, that it wouldn't matter whether I'm making money from it or not.
Right. The,
Um,
the way I look at it is like I want to make money from music so that I can spend more time making music.
mhm,
So part of not to make money to go do other things, but to make money so that I can use my time to make
mhm.
music. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um
absolutely.
it gets a little bit different. I have a daughter now and I'm married, so that has kind of changed things for a long time. It was kind of I worked minimally and recorded as much as I could on the side. But when you're talking about the financial freedom, I grapple with this all the time. It's like how much of it is legitimately feeling that quote unquote financial freedom to allow yourself to go do the thing that you want to do just for yourself, which is what you're working on right now, as you're describing, and how much of that is like
Mhm.
um, just a mental thing. If I'm making any sense, like for someone like me, I can often
No, that
feel
that does.
financially strapped, and it's like, should I just ignore that anxiety and do the thing that I really know that I want to do, even though I feel like I can't be doing it because I should be doing something else? And it's like, can you leap? And then it feels like if you go down that way now and it doesn't lead to something, or you feel like you have to rush it, or there is more pressure because if it doesn't, then now you've kind of dug yourself in a big hole by not doing these other things that are going to earn you money. But it's this mental game I play all the time.
Yeah, I do find that it is very mental. Or I think most of the way we act and think, obviously think because that's in your head, but I I do think that there's no really objective way to think about things, especially when it's your life, and especially the more you go with your gut, and depends on what kind of person you are and what your mood is. I think that um, yeah, different people will respond differently to their situations and have different sort of risk tolerances and comfort
right,
levels with things like finances, and will be able to maybe shut out certain things and zone in. Maybe they have a certain routine they do, or whatever. There's so many different factors. All I know is that I feel in a place where I'm good for the time being. That's all I
hmm
know. You know, um, and I would say that yeah, I think that's a very. I'm just lucky to have that right now. I
hmm
not not even think about it. I'm just like, okay, what do I feel like doing today? Um, Hopefully it's make music,
hmm
um, get in my studio. Um, do I have a gig, etc. Right? And definitely over the past couple years, it's felt like that because the gigs have flowed in very regularly. Like I didn't have to think, on a week or monthly basis, how many gigs do I have? How much money am I making? I didn't have to think about that because I knew it was, I'm not down to the in the red where I'm like, okay, I need to make this much money. So I would say I I haven't been a starving artist the last couple years. I haven't been like making bank or anything,
sure,
but it hasn't been like
a concern,
if I don't play like 4 gigs this week, then I'm gonna not be able to eat kind of thing.
right?
But I do very much um appreciate that like drive that you get, and I think that um, the moments in my life that I have been driven to do this sort of stuff, it has to come from somewhere. And Um, in general, it hasn't come from money, but it's come from somewhere. And whenever that appears, I just feel like it's my duty
Mhm.
to to just show up, right? And because those moments, I think for some people, I envy the people that are just creative every day, and they're always just like wanting to be in the studio or do whatever art they make or do whatever thing they do, right? I'm just not. It's very unpredictable for me.
Mhm.
I may get in those modes like for a week or 2 weeks or a month, but there are long stretches of time where I may be playing music, but I don't feel in general like a creative person
Mm.
or an inspired person, right? So I think definitely those first few weeks of January, I felt very much like that. I still do, just not like I already feel a difference now that it's leap day, February 29th. I feel like, I
Oh,
would
yeah.
want to keep, yeah, right.
Yeah.
I want to keep this going, but it's not flowing out of me quite as magically as it
Mm.
was in the beginning, right? And so I think I just got really lucky in the beginning.
Mhm.
This new um, goal, this call it a New Year's resolution, if you will, to make this a habit, to be in my studio, to write and record. Um, I think I got really lucky, maybe call it beginner's luck even, right? In the beginning, just being excited. And I find that to be the case with a lot of things that I get into where the beginning is fruitful and exciting, but after a certain amount of time it's just, I don't know, I feel like moving on to something else.
Mhm.
So I'm definitely starting to feel like now is the time where I just need to just double down and keep showing up, right? Because I'm definitely a believer in habit formation. I think it depends on what you're doing, but I think 3 months of doing something very consistently, I think, will build that habit and also begin to turn that activity from a thing you do into something that is part of your identity. And I
Mhm.
think once you get to that place where you go from, for instance, I play music to I'm a musician, right? That jump there. Or like I am, you know, w- writing and recording to I am a composer and record person that records music, whatever. I think that's a significant shift and just makes it easier to show up, right?
Mhm.
You know, and obviously I don't want to form many habits that I don't want to do. But as long as I'm feeling excited and feel like driven by something, that's what I want to follow. Um,
Yeah. I
yeah.
like what you said, a while back about, like, when you feel that something is your duty,
Hmm.
and that's how I felt about starting this podcast. Because
Mm,
I'm a musician, and uh years ago, my wife, we weren't married at the time, but she had a podcast, and I was like, I need to just make those files sound better. Please send them to me. Like, and then, long story short, she like uh recommended me to work on someone's podcast. They were looking for an editor, and I wound up in this world of like podcast editing. That was one thing I was doing to make some money. And I had thought about starting my own podcast, and I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. And for a while, and then I don't know what happened, but suddenly it was just like, no, I have to, because I know how to do it. Like, I've now learned, I've been in this world. I kind of worked for a podcast company for like a year, and then parted ways, but I really learned how to like produce a podcast. But I'm a musician, and I don't feel like, uh going back to that thing where it's like you feel like you're doing something for the first time, but you're not really sure. That's how I was with the music podcast. Like, I didn't really know of a lot of them out there when I had kind of tried to look up some music podcasts, I was always kind of surprised at how um like little things came back from my search or whatever. I'm still naive and I would prefer to stay that way. But I do kind of feel like I'm doing something slightly unique in that way as
Mhm.
well, even though like I don't think this doesn't feel like my true passion. Like my true passion is writing music,
Mhm.
but this feels like my duty at
Mm,
this point in time. Going back, so
really
that just
cool.
when you using that word stuck out to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Also reminds me of the really popular book right now, Creative Act. I don't know if you read it or
I don't
listened
know
to
it.
it. Rick Rubin.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
He says about how, when inspiration or whatever you want to call it shows up, it's your duty or whatever word he used to describe it, to show up and just do the work, right? Because it's unpredictable when that's going to come.
Mm-hmm.
But when it does, you know, you you know what you got to do. You have to be
Yeah.
there and let it come through you and channel it and put it into your work. And I definitely resonate with that. And yeah, I long for that feeling, and because it's so unpredictable, because I don't have it all the time, when it comes, it's intense, and I I know what I need to do, that kind of thing. I think it's particularly tough today, especially if you spend time on social media. Um, but even if you don't, it's just the world is so connected, right? And there's so much media thrown at us,
Mm-hmm.
um, any different forms. And when it comes to music, for instance, right, you're just aware of how many people there are making music, right?
Overwhelming.
And it's extremely, yeah. And I guess you feel like, yeah, there's no shortage of music. And so, like, why should what's special about me making it? That kind of thing. Um, but I think what it just goes back to is, as long as you're making something just for yourself and you're enjoying that process, right? And you're not doing it for anything other than that, then I think you're in a good place. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think the more I get older, the um, less I am making anything to, you know, get famous, to make money, with those sort of things in mind. Obviously, like, I want to build my career, but I'm not just excited about those things as much. I've because I've gotten a taste of it on YouTube. With over 1 billion views, right, and over 1 million subscribers there, and that just it's cool. Like, don't get me wrong, it's great, but it doesn't hasn't done much for me in terms of, like, making me feel great or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think it's possible that that's just because it's a social media platform, a content platform, and I'm not really making real in-person connections there. And I think that's actually a big thing, that numbers are just numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but
They're not valued that way though anymore.
I
Numbers
know
are valued.
they are
It's
certainly
weird.
valued,
Yeah.
and which is why I knew that shooting for 1 million subscribers on YouTube was a goal that I might not think too much about, but someone will, and
Mm-hmm.
could, be a good piece of leverage or a good calling card, et cetera,
Right.
et cetera. Um, but what was I going to say? Um, I just think that these days I want to make things that I believe in, you know, that I want to do regardless of whether I share them or whether they get a lot of views, etc. Okay. I just want to feel the creative spark, and I want to be inspired to make what I'm making, whatever that is. And I don't know. I like not knowing what that is. I like
Mm-hmm.
discovering it. I like not knowing where my career will end up, but I definitely need to know that I'm doing something to develop or to progress in some way. I think that's when I'm happiest, when I just feel like things are moving,
Mhm.
right? I would much rather a slow, steady growth over many years rather than like blow up and then nothing happen. And that can come in many different forms. But musically speaking, it just means like, am I writing music that I like? Am I finding new things that I'm coming up with, right? Am I and as long as that stuff's happening, I think I'm happy. Right now, I'm focused on music, and that's what I've been focused on for the better part of my life. It's been a huge thing in my life for since as long as I can remember. I can't say for certain whether music is going to be the biggest thing I'm going to be working on in a certain
Mm.
number of years. It's a good possibility, but the way I feel is like I don't really see anything laid out for me. I'm aware of my capacity to change, and I'm also aware that with my history, I've bounced around from various things, typically within music, but still, I would say I'm willing to pivot if something feels right, if something grabs me, if I have an emotional response to something.
That's exciting.
At the moment, though, I'm completely focused on like the here and now, and that is music for sure, right? So I think I'm a somewhat unpredictable person. I think I I even feel like I don't even know myself to like everything about myself. I don't know exactly where I'm going, how I'll feel in a month or 2 months.
Mhm.
But I know that I'm good at responding to how I feel. And if I have a strong feeling about something or a strong urge to do something or not do something, then in general I will listen to that. And when I have a strong urge to like be creative, I can spend a long time being creative, and that seems like really important work. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. I would say.
That's great. Um, Thank you so much for filling us all in on your story, your journey, what makes you tick, and it feels like a great spot to leave off. Can you tell everyone where they can find your content? So I know Instagram, you're what, Chappy Milkshake, correct?
Mhm.
And
Happy
then
milkshake.
I'll link everything, but what's the name of your YouTube channel?
It's just my name, Jake Chapman, and my TikTok is also just Jake Chapman.
All
Very
right.
easy.
And same on Spotify as well. So I'll have all that linked there in the show notes. Anything else you have coming out soon that you want people to be aware of or anything like that?
Um, yeah, sure. Well, An Angel will be with you shortly. The first version was released a few weeks ago on the February 12th. On March 11th, currently have scheduled to release the looped version. So it's the original video, just looped a few times.
Okay.
And I thought that would be a good alternate version just because so many people experienced that video as a loop,
Multiple times. Yeah,
right?
totally.
And so I felt like putting that up. So that's going to come out, I believe, March 11th on all platforms. Um, and we shall see about what comes next after that. Um, yeah, I'm excited to see. I definitely, I've been a musician that has not been focused on releasing music like whatsoever. So this is very much a new thing, and it definitely takes more discipline, and more like, actually getting things done than just
Mhm.
taking gigs, which I'm
Totally.
used to, right? And that's fine. And like I said, I enjoy playing out. I like just showing up and playing and improvising because most of my gigs are jazz.
Right.
That's all really, really great. But in order to build something and release music and set up your own shows and eventually tours and all that stuff, that definitely takes planning and just work. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I've said that, like, I've always, for the most part, put out albums,
Mhm.
um, but I'm kinda more interested in doing singles, but I've also realized that, like, it's almost the same amount of work, but for just one song. You need the artwork, you need the release date, like, you have to do all the same things that you would for this whole batch, except
Right.
you have to do it, like, way more often, and that's, like, kind of a drag, but I
Mhm.
think, like anything, you can make a habit out of it and just kinda get in that flow and, um, make it happen, so once this
For sure. Yeah.
s
I'm just trying to make it as organic as possible. Like, not be too precious about anything if I can avoid that. Like coming into this year and this new recording project, I think I'd always put recording on a pedestal and
Mm,
writing and recording, like needing to be very inspired and like write something original and then record it, if I even get to that point. But the new mindset was like, just show up, start working on something. Don't worry about what it's going to be. Just show up for an hour or whatever or more a day. And, you know, something will come of that. I'll get better in that in the process. So I'm really just trying to stick to that sort of mentality of just use what you have at hand and share things as you feel, but like not like wait so long that you never do anything, right? Because I think I definitely felt some of that, where like a sense of waiting until the perfect moment or not
mm,
wanting to do something unless I felt like it was perfect or really good or
mhm.
whatever. So,
It's a great way to do
I
nothing.
just want to keep things moving and like because once you finish something, you're on to the next, and that feels good too. It's get things out so then you can just open up your mind and everything to the possibility of what's next, right?
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, that's what I would say. That's where I'm at. You know.
Sweet. Well, I realized I forgot to ask you an important question.
Oh, what is that?
So, at the end of every episode, I do a little segment where I have a playlist. It's called A Collective Musical Mind, and I have each guest give me a song or EP or an album of something that, like, very recently has had you super juiced and inspired, and then I kind of throw it in the playlist, and we can all go check out what everyone's been listening to lately. It doesn't need to be a new thing, but it needs to be a new thing for you, if that
For
makes
me?
sense.
Um, sure. Um, I'll just preface this by saying whenever people ask me what I've been listening to, I'm very bad at like remembering
Sure.
sometimes, unless like I'm just hooked on a specific thing. And also lately, I don't think I've been listening to a ton of music.
Mm,
Most of my
that's
music making,
interesting.
I mean, honestly, and maybe this could be a bad thing, but with all the gigging I've been doing, and then recently the recording, most of my music listening has been like while I'm making it, right?
I
Uh,
totally
but
understand.
most
Yeah.
of the when I am listening to the music, it's usually in the car.
Hmm.
I'm usually discovering things in the car. But sometimes I put on a podcast, so I look forward to listening to this in the car.
Yeah.
But I'll give one. Here's one song that I've listened to quite a bit, and and then I'll give another answer. But Money Long's "Made for Me," which is I don't know if you've heard that, but it is a very viral um, kind of throwback R&B song that got really popular on TikTok, especially. I think
Okay.
that's been a jam. Not too long ago, I was listening to some John Bryan though,
Oh,
in,
I know John Bryan.
who's
Yeah.
a guy that I hope to meet at some point. I have not done my the deep dive on him, and I
Mhm.
really need to, because he is incredible, and I admire his work with the he has a lot of experience working with mallet percussion and instruments as well.
Mm.
And so yeah, maybe it wasn't like yesterday, but like a few weeks ago I was checking out a lot of his stuff, and really enjoyed it. um yeah, yeah, but I'm always trying to you know keep up or to discover something new. A lot of the times, I'm shazamming at the climbing gym. I do a lot of climbing, and they're always playing great music there, and I'm always like, "Ugh, I gotta Shazam
Yeah.
this." you know,
Do you have a John Bryan tune you want to share?
I don't have a specific one. No, I
Okay.
don't.
I'll put one in there for you then. The one that I always think of. It's called Gotta Start Somewhere. And it's the first song on the record. And I'm like, oh, this is such an obvious example of someone who's like, fuck it. I don't care what I'm saying. I don't care what I'm doing. This is it. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Like getting this album started.
yeah,
And I love that. So that feels fitting to me.
awesome.
Um, all right. Those
Yeah.
are both in there. Jake, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to chat with you and getting to know you a little bit. Thank you so much for your time and keep going.
Thank you, Rick. Yeah, thanks for having me. Great talking.
All right, thanks for listening all the way through. Since you did, you must not have thought it sucked. So if you could, can you please give it a rating on whatever platform you're listening on, and leave a review if you feel inclined to do so? It'd be great to help this podcast grow and reach more cool people like yourself. So anyway, as we mentioned in the show, Jake's new single is out right now, and Angel will be with you shortly. You can stream it wherever. I've got Jake's Spotify linked in the show notes. I've also got his YouTube, his Instagram, TikTok, the whole nine over there. So go ahead and give Jake a follow if you don't already follow him. Thanks for being here, and just go out there and press record. Fuck it, who cares? Just hit record and share it somewhere. You never know what's going to happen. Have a good one. Thanks for listening to A Musical Mind. I have been your host, Richard Raymond II. If you, your band, or your friend, or anyone you know is in need of mixing and mastering services, I offer that remotely. Shoot me an email. That's richardraymond2@gmail.com. No spaces, all spelled out. You can also give me a follow, Richard_Raymond_II on Instagram. Shoot me a DM. We'll get to making some cool shit. And please like this podcast, share it with a friend, give it a 5-star rating. It ain't too hard to do. I appreciate you for being here, and I'll see you next time.